Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. So this was our Patreon exclusive video yesterday, and obviously a very touchy subject. You could join the Patreon family for as little as $1 a month while we're still using dollars in this world.
Yep.
And when you pay for a year in advance, it does save you 10%, so about 90 cents a month for exclusives on a weekly basis. Typically actually more than a weekly basis.
And it helps support the awakening.
Yeah, absolutely, because the system doesn't like what we cover. That's really the bottom line. This was interesting last night. We were looking at this. Russia's mysterious doomsday radio station, UVB-76, apparently just broadcast 4 cryptic messages in the span of 24 hours. Just like before the SMO. So what they were putting out there was some things repeating, and the words Neptune, Thymus, Foxcloak, and Nudibux. Very, very curious, and then of course you have a little context post which tells you that there is something to this, because again, they want to control the narrative when they put the little context posts. Oh, this is misleading. Yes. Wait a minute, was that George? Yeah, no, maybe that was the Pope. They look so much alike anyway.
They do with that cloak.
Yeah, they absolutely do. The Dark Lord of the Sith. Could be absolutely nothing, could be something going on. Well, look at these numbers. Does it make you nauseous? Look at how fast they change. The U.S. national debt still increasing. And when you look at it per person, too, debt per citizen, we owe $107,367 each. That's the debt per person. And then debt per taxpayer, $323,049 each. April 15th was yesterday. It's absolutely perhaps the day of the year that I dread the most, and we are definitely not in any sort of higher tax brackets.
No, we learned that quick.
Yeah, absolutely. But look at this too, the U.S. federal debt to GDP ratio. 1960, 53%, 1980, 34.56%. And then 58.31% in 2000, now 122.66%. And what does that really say? It says that the current system is not sustainable. And again, it's all an illusion. We agree. We agree to go by this illusion. But when does somebody actually call it for what it is and pulls the plug on the illusion?
Well, this illusion has consequence.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're going to touch a little bit more on just how big those consequences can be a little bit later. The White House announces China is now facing a 245% tariff. Is this a game of poker or what? I mean, I see you and I raise you. I see you and I raise you. And ultimately, it's going to lead, obviously, to the collapse of the system, which has been in the works for a very long time, and people have always been trying to guess, when does that come? Again, there are certain years that are very, very significant. And 2025, perhaps it's the most significant of years. It does feel that this is the pivotal year. This is a year that can be a turning point and positive change past this, or it can be a dark dip, but you don't sell at the bottom of the dip. That's typically where you want to buy and then go back up. But what they do is they drive the fear, so everybody does sell at the bottom of the dip, and then of course the system buys. So again, the system doesn't want to let go of control, even though if we look at it as, the sine waves of consciousness, they are losing control of a lot of people. They're trying to maintain the narrative as best as they can. That has kept them in power for thousands of years. California, first state to sue 47 on tariffs. Of course, California would lead the way with that. The only other possibility really would be New York leading the way on suing against tariffs. when you look at all the signs, it's going to be a rough ride. And, again, a lot of people can't tolerate rough rides and get very nauseous. It's understandable. A dollar bubble just burst. Peter Schiff warns, this is the collapse I've warned about for years. So again, isn't it curious that we have these different forecasts, and we've had so many things telegraphed for the year 2025. I mean, going even back to the Roddy Piper movie about the shape-shifting reptilians. They live. It was, in the year 2025, our plan will come to fruition. I mean, it's out there in the movies from 35 years ago. And also those DEA, GEL numbers, they are basically very foreboding in the sense that when you look at those numbers, those countries that seem to lose an awful lot of the population in the countries are all NATO countries, or they're all aligned geopolitically and economically with the U.S. The BRICS nations don't really lose hardly anything. And in fact, some of them actually gain population. What's that all about? Well, again, it's telegraphing what the system is doing. They have to tell us, what they have planned. And they do. And they just bank on the fact that people won't listen. The majority of people won't pay attention. The majority of people will be too busy watching the Kardashians or whatever.
Because that's what people do.
Well, some people. But here you go. So, precarious position, as we all know. Gold has been riding a high. And when you look at the dollar and, again, the yuan, this collision course that seems to be set, who is going to win? Well, the system has set it up so that, it looks like it's inevitable that China will lead the world and take over the position of the U.S. on the world stage, as the U.S. has been used as a military and policing force, and also the dominant economic force. Then you have what appears to be a thorn in the side of the plans of the dark matrix control system, the deep state, however you want to, the cabal, whatever terms we want to use, in 47's presidency. Now we understand, again, so much of everything is just simply drama. It is just theater. But then again, how much does the fact that we are going from a dark Kali Yuga, where most people don't have a clue about the manipulation and everything going on behind the scenes, vast majority don't have a clue, we're going into a Bronze Yuga, a different age in which people understand the situation. Yes, they can still be tempted to step into the darkness and go down the side of the Empire, to use Star Wars jargon, but they understand the situation a lot more clearly than what they have in the past. That's really the big difference than what we have going on right now. And of course, we have a monetary system right now that wants to go completely digital. Everything that they want to use is going to be all biometric. We already have that type of ID system that's coming online, and they're nudging us. Even the side of the rebels apparently is nudging us into biometric IDs and the like. And we know there's going to be a big crash in order for them to pull the rug out and then replace it with the new system.
I don't think that the controllers, the human controllers, I don't feel that they want a big mess. I mean, they don't want to give anything up. They don't want to give up their good foods, their nice homes, things of that nature. So I think they're going to try to keep everything online to a certain degree. We'll just have to see how that goes.
The other part of this is the will real estate collapse? Is crypto collapsing? There's obviously been the bumpy ride of the stock market. Yet at the same time, when you really look at it, in 20 years' time, the stock market has exploded. And in fact, it always kind of explodes because, again, it's the biggest companies, which ultimately, those companies are the system. They are the system. The system doesn't really want to hurt itself. It just wants to pull and capture as many of the little fish out there as possible and keep them in the system. They want to keep them in, again, the aquarium. They don't want the fish escaping. So, what he's talking about here is, the Fed, again, calls to abolish the Fed and calls to abolish the IRS. The funding for the WHO is, in fact, there's many articles out there saying that since the U.S. has withdrawn that, it can't stay and it's going to have to eventually collapse and go. I think we would be well served with all these different systems of the Kali Yuga, of the dark matrix, of the Cabal, of the deep state. We'd be very well served to have them all go. So any way you look at this, it kind of has to happen. It could be a much gentler, smoother transition. And again, this system is going to do whatever it can to benefit itself. When you look to certain cryptos, for instance, and all that you see is XRP news, and then you look at the price, and XRP is not exploding, but it should be exploding because, after all, it looks like it's going to be one of the major players, perhaps, not that you could ever replace Bitcoin for what it did, and really who was Satoshi, when you get down into that. Again, I think there's so much out there that has been about laying the groundwork from both the good guy scenario and bad guy scenario to keep us entrapped mentally in this prison. But the reality is they're not going to be able to keep all the people entrapped. In fact, there are some right now that are so far out of the system, they're watching everything with a Buddhist attachment because they're not feeding the energetic dark matrix, but they are observing what's happening. And that's the key. It's going to be a bumpy ride. It's going to be pretty scary at times, absolutely. But we must remain calm and cool.
I think so. It's about putting padding around ourselves with our friends and neighbors and our practice. It's going to get us through.
Absolutely. We recognize the season, we see it, but we don't panic. So here you see this from Zero Hedge. China is open to talks with the U.S. NVIDIA down 5.8% after warning of USD $5.5 billion hit. Will again, the BRICS currency ultimately dominate the dollar currency? I think what we need to do is stop thinking in the boxes of these different countries, which really are like corporations. And again, there's a reason why I always Freudian slip with calling a country a company, because USA is USA Inc. That is a reality, and we're all still tied to British maritime law. And when you look at the expansion, the colonialism that happened with these European powers, like Great Britain, France, and Spain, and Portugal, and also Denmark, you see this European colonialism that happened. What was that really? That was just simply the dark matrix expanding and controlling all the little tribes of the earth that they possibly can, getting us all adapt to this system and take on their system. I think the way to freedom really lies in breaking it down at first into smaller components, and then eventually replacing it in totality. The fact that the WHO might not exist soon, that is, I think, amazingly positive news. As we all know what that felt like going back into 2020.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
So when we look at this, what's going to dominate 2025, it's going to be what we've been talking about all along. It's going to be the threat of economic warfare and the real reality of economic warfare and the threat of WW3. It's interesting to look at the charts because we are really a global society. This is just showing U.S. homeowner where, for instance, the share of washer imports. So where does your washer come from by market 2024? You can see, Thailand. Yeah, I would have thought maybe China first, but no, actually Thailand and Vietnam. And it depends on The item, how about dryers? Well, dryer imports, it's almost all Mexico. Isn't that curious? Again, we are a global society already. And we are kept running on the wheel by competing against each other instead of working with each other. The system wants us competing because the system reaps the benefits of humanity being divided. As you could see, Mexico, China, Mexico, China, Mexico, China, South Korea, Japan, China and Mexico. If we wiped away all these national boundaries, which people are inherently terrified about, because again, we've been brought up with the idea that, for us here in the U.S., we live in the greatest country that's ever existed on the entirety of the planet. That's what we're sold as kids. We get up, we say our little Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance, have you ever felt into that energy and then feel into the energy of a Roman Catholic ceremony? You say verbatim the same words in that Roman Catholic ceremony. Time and time again. And my mom used to say, I liked it better when they did it in Latin. It felt more magical than in English. Well, again, English has been constructed to be the language of this particular matrix, the dominant language. But the reality is, again, it's all matrix. It is all matrix. And when they have you going to a ceremony and saying the same words time and time again, you're creating an energy stream. And the energy stream is using their verbiage so that energy goes into them. They can access and tap into it. It is, again, the fact that our consciousness is very powerful and our intent is very powerful. So they tell you what they want to manifest, and people robotically do it. And they do it time and time again. And if you are, for instance, a good Catholic, just to bring up what my background was as a kid, you're going there every Sunday, you're saying the same words, you're putting your energy into the same spell, which includes things like your will be done, your kingdom come, here as it is in the Biru. Just to throw it out there for a little clarity. Again, this is part of what is done to humanity. And when we look and we only think in the boxes that they give us, why don't we look at this in a different light? And again, see that, we could benefit from working together far more than working against each other. This is why they gave us Darwinian evolution, because Darwin, he was a 33rd degree Mason. He's part of the problem. He's part of the system. So his view of evolution, which things do evolve, they don't stay stagnant. Nothing will ever stay exactly the same. In fact, when we'll touch on this later video today, even our past doesn't necessarily stay the same.
Mm-mm. No, and talking about the rituals that they give us when we're in school, just to point out that ritual is grabbing the energy and it's directing it to them. Whereas if you open up your own spiritual world and you want to do something, you do that for yourself, and that outgoing energy actually goes to you. So they're very good about manipulating people and getting them to send their energy, in a direction that's benefiting them. I just want people to understand that when you open yourself up to spirituality, everything you do is to benefit you, your loved ones. It's to benefit where you want it to go. And they keep us really blinded in a box when they give us our rituals. That just kind of shuts you down. I'm thinking back when I was little and I said the Pledge of Allegiance. I was just always so proud of myself for doing that, for what they told me to do. It's like, oh, wow, I'm doing what they told me to do. I was proud of myself for it, but I didn't think outside of that box. And that's exactly where they want us to go.
And here you have a criminal referral filed against New York Attorney General Letitia James, been filed with the DOJ, alleging that she had falsified records to get home loans for Virginia property that she claimed was her principal residence in 2023, while she was serving as the New York State prosecutor. So again, the system itself is being exposed, and they will definitely they'll give you some sacrificial lambs. That's a reality, and at the same time, we hope and put out there the intent that the energy of exposing the system be amplified and that it be exponential, because this is the key to humanity stepping away from it. And we don't want to walk away from one bad system and go to another. We certainly do not want to go from, and we've never really had a true democracy. And then again, when you really, really look at it, everything has been manipulated the entire time. There never was a golden age in this system, per se. The golden age is outside of the system. And so that is so important to know. And, I've been doing a lot more research about something that I detest, which is the economic system itself, because of the manipulation and the misery that it brings on people. And yet I see so many good people inside the system that still don't realize that they're being manipulated by the system. And, again, it's awakening everyone. If cells in the liver decided to try to take over the territory of the heart, what would happen? Again, the body would die if our organs are fighting against each other. This is a change in perspective that we need to have. We need to recognize that we're all part of something bigger. It's just a very simple shift in the point of view. And yet it is profound. And it's profound to the point where you can't stop what would be happening if we did take that look. If we took that step back and looked and shifted and say, again, this system can't go on, and you can't have a healthy patient, a healthy, being when their own internal organs are striving and fighting amongst themselves. It's an impossibility to live up to your highest potential if that's the case. So it's removing the boxes. It's stepping outside and looking around and really seeing things for what they are.
It's about learning to be an energetic ninja. So everything that comes to you in your life, if there's resistance around it, it's having that flexibility and ability to kind of leave yourself open enough and ask all the questions around your situation and saying, okay, how can I work with this situation to make my situation better? And usually that goes with working with other people, working with a situation instead of against a situation. And that's what we are doing. We're stepping into this awakening. We are learning to do that. So no matter what comes your way, we're learning to, use that momentum for us, not against us. But it takes more of us to be awake to do that. So we all have to be in this together.
Absolutely. So, the system is purposely complicated. Many people at tax time will say, wait a minute, I just can't figure this out. And then you look at the tax professionals and you realize that they're going to tell you the truth is it's all gray. It's not really black and white. It's all gray. Now, it's made that way on purpose so that those in the know in the country club, can find their ways to utilize the system to be advantageous to them. Like Letitia here, claiming that her Virginia property was her principal residence. But wait a minute, you're a New York State prosecutor. You don't even live in New York State, you're saying? Oh, well, in 2021, she also purchased a 5-family Brooklyn property, but has consistently misrepresented the same property as having only 4 units in both building permit applications and numerous mortgage documents and applications. There's going to be so much that comes out right now. The fact is, again, this entire system is criminal. Having you get taxed on capital gains, when your parents, if your parents pass on, they leave you their money, they were taxed on it, and then you're going to be taxed on it. These people are parasites. The entire system is parasitic. There's no difference between politicians and ticks or leeches or mosquitoes. And they try to, again, entice you to become one of them by again giving you the benefits so that you can be a tick, a leech, or a parasite on society. No. we have to change the way things are done. And that comes from realizing that, it's just insane to keep going along with the same system that ultimately is literally poisoning us and toxifying us.
Well, I'm looking at this lady and I'm thinking, boy, she's really going to be facing some heat. And I think what they want us to do is they want us to be angry at each other. They want us to be lashing out saying, ha, 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 this happened to you. But my hope for her is that there is some mercy and she does learn some things. And through that learning, maybe she helps other people do the right thing. That's my hope.
The system entices people into it, and then it'll end up controlling people, often through a form of blackmail. And this is what we're learning. Many people are learning this for the first time. So, instead of, taking delight in seeing somebody in this orange jumpsuit, we have to recognize it's the system. And people have chosen to get over, in many cases, on others, and that's sad. Here you do have people that are trying, and they are in the system, and do seem to legitimately be trying to do the best they can. What you have to realize is, I really do believe if you looked at the average politician, you'll find that they're not necessarily the brightest, the smartest, the wisest. In fact, we in this society, in this dark matrix, it's really quite the opposite. The ones that rise to the top are not the cream of the crop. Although there are some good ones that are truly trying to do what they can. Here you see this statement that China must not own a single acre of American farmland. And then Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Arkansas was the first state in the country to kick, quote unquote, communist China off our farmland, but we can't be the last. And she has done some things that we could definitely say are good for people in her state. Overall, is she a saint? No. Again, she's in the system, but I do think that as we come in alignment with our higher selves, we're going to find ourselves wanting to do things that are going to benefit the whole as much as possible. Still, obviously, using the divisive tactic, Communist China. Well, Communist China came into being due to funding from the biggest capitalists that there are. If you look at where did Mao get his funding, it's the same old banking families. They funded Communist China purposely to be a counterweight to the U.S. at this point in time, and other reasons too. So it's just all a tool. And when you look at how we describe ourselves, the very first word is again a control system matrix tool. And so is she out of it? No, she's still very much in the system, but her intent does seem to be real. It does seem that she really is looking to do the best that she can with her understanding. And that's key, because again, these people find themselves in position of potential power and influence within the dark matrix, which is inside of the natural matrix. And, again, they can only either choose to do the best that they can in an honest, sincere way, or they can just simply go along with what the system wants them to do. So she says, I was the first governor to submit a waiver to the Trump administration to end taxpayer-funded candy and soft drinks in food stamps. Taxpayers should not be subsidizing poor health on the front end and paying for it on the back end with skyrocketing health care costs and federal debt. Yeah, absolutely. So, that is another good thing. And here, once again, looking to Arkansas, with all the quote unquote natural disasters and the floods and the storms, Arkansas was allowed to push back their federal filing date to November. So that was curious. When I saw that, I was like, wow, okay, well, why not Western North Carolina? I mean, why not North Carolina, with everything that happened, again, but the bigger question is, wait a minute, why do we even have an IRS? Because, again, we didn't, when we go pre-1913, it didn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I'm not privy to, but, you can see right now we have it for other people, not us.
Yeah, and they've also cut state income tax by 20% and will eliminate the state grocery tax. So, again, certain states seem to be doing a little bit more than others to help out their citizens. The U.S. could cancel almost all NATO funding, so says New York Times. And, again, there's a big split and divide going on. And I do think part of it is completely planned. But then again, I think that the dark matrix itself is really, really terrified of somebody doing something that's not on the script.
Indeed.
That's the big thing. So, again, WHO, will it go bye-bye? Let's hope so. We'd love to see, again, so many of these very, very incompetent, incompetent when it comes to helping humanity, such as CDC and FDA and, again, YT, openly says, anything that goes against WHO policy is something that they won't allow. It's right there on YT itself. And I wanted to just show there's so much news coming out of Viktor Orban's Hungary. Here you have Peter in Sweden talking about the right-wing government in Hungary has just made a new law that everybody has the right to pay with cash. They're rejecting the cashless agenda. The other thing is they say that there's just men and women. That's it. Pretty simple. And that's another thing. There's a lot, actually. There's smoke bombs going off in Hungary. They're banning certain outright expressions of certain feelings. There's stuff we just can't say openly. But let's just say Hungary is really going against the trend in many other European, EU nations, as we see Ursula and crew, Ursula Klaus, et cetera. They're still going ahead with their certain agenda, but Hungary seems to be going very much against as those agendas. No more financial aid to Ukraine, would veto any attempt again to bring Ukraine into the EU. By the way, they seem to be suffering from foot and mouth disease. It doesn't seem like a natural outbreak. So, what do you think is happening over there? Maybe is there some sort of punishment going on, because of speaking out? Ozempic and other weight loss drugs cause hair loss, amongst other things. I also had seen where they might ban pharmaceutical commercials. And that would be wonderful. I think that would be awesome. I am so tired of seeing pharmaceutical commercials. And every time I hear one, I just think, who in their right mind, after listening to all the possible side effects, would still choose to go ahead and get something for weight loss or clearing your skin? When you look at the negative, it seems to vastly dwarf anything good, and yet they do.
Well, when some of the side effects are possible thyroid cancer and tumors and suicide, that's what they say. That's exactly what they say. And they say it in such a hypnotic way that it makes you just sort of dismiss it and think, I won't be the one to get that. But unfortunately, I have heard from people who have done this, and it has been devastating. It devastated their lives. It really, really did, because there's more than just what they say as far as the side effects and what happened to the people I know that I talk to. I mean, oh my gosh, it's just, how do you handle that? How do you deal with that? And it's so not fair. And it's because they've created such an unhealthy world for people to truly go out and find healthy food, organic food, eat whole food. They don't know how. Someone has not taught them. They don't have the willpower. These foods that are full of so many chemicals. When I say chemicals, I mean ingredients. But if you look on the back of the bag, these are chemical names. You can barely pronounce them. That's what they've become accustomed to eating. And the body simply cannot deal with that. The body is just going to be, oh, I don't like this. I'm going to go throw it in a fat cell. And then that becomes the main pathway of the body. And until you start eating the whole food again, and the body can actually function with it, it's going to be very, very difficult. And therefore, people get frustrated. They're not losing the weight. Things are not happening. Oh, but here's a silver bullet for me, and I can go around these other things and just lose it. And it's not helping anyone's body. It's really devastating. And my heart goes out because I understand how it is to really, be addicted to sugar. I get it. I understand. It's really horrible. It took me years to get off of it. But I see people using this, and I don't know why it's not off the market yet. I don't, because it's the most devastating thing I've seen. Well, one of the most, at least top 5. It's pretty bad. In my opinion, I'm not a doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, when you look to the system, I just think we see more issues the more we uncover. 6.6, by the way, earthquake, Southeast Indian Ridge. There was quite a bit of swarming going on. What's this one? How big is this one? 5.6, okay. This is probably just energy, again, transferring over. There was quite a bit of swarming going on in Southern California, which is dying down some now again. We could see 45 of 247 quakes in this area. This was the epicenter of that swarm, only 30 there now. So, again, I would be very, very cautious anywhere in California and the Pacific Northwest at this point in time. Just from the potential of the big one per se, because on a certain timeline, it really does feel that before all the economic and outright WW3 conflict would start, there would be the big ones at about almost the exact same time. A little 2.2 over here in Georgia. So again, on certain timeline, because timelines are flexible. Oh yeah. And timelines, can they be changed? Absolutely, because we have all these different consciousnesses interplaying with each other all the time. So, these timelines, they kind of blip into probability, and then they blip back out when certain things change. This is a colossal squid in its own deep ocean habitat. I mean, doesn't this really look like something from a sci-fi movie? I mean, and that's here on Earth.
He's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. Look at the glowing eyes. Isn't that cool? Oh, there's so much to really, really look at. Remember back in 2021, everybody was covering their faces. Well, not Gil Bates. They had a full wedding and no facial coverings in the midst of all the chaos. We saw Gavin Newsom doing the same thing with dinners, laughing and having a good time. There's video of all the leaders masked up and stuff, and then, when the camera stops rolling, they all take them right off, because it's do what we say, not what we do. It's all for the benefit of control. Oh, what's going on here? This is a crosswalk here in California.
Wait. It is infant. Hi, this is Elon Musk. Welcome to Palo Alto, the home of Tesla engineering. They say money can't buy happiness, and okay. I guess that's true. God knows I've tried. But it can buy a Cybertruck, and that's pretty sick, right? Right? Fuck, I'm so loaded.
It's real.
Hi, this is Mark Zuckerberg, but real ones call me the Zuck. It's normal to feel uncomfortable or even violated as we forcefully insert AI into every facet of your conscious experience. And I just want to assure you, you don't need to worry, because there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop it. Anyway, see ya.
Most appropriate.
Yeah, and this looks like our old local Walmart from when we were in the Texarkana area, because we used to see this where they would be riding the horses up pretty much. But in this case, they actually go in. This is in Louisiana. Go into a local Walmart. Hopefully those horses did their business.
I would hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope you guys are not having a bad hair day.
Uh-oh.
It's got to reboot. It's got to reboot for the
go.
cutie. Look at that. As always, look forward to your comments. Much love. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.